one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to our first board meeting for the month of September 2022. We've got a lot to get through here tonight, so let's get rolling. Can I get a motion that the minutes of August 22nd, 2022's meeting be approved with a change to add the word equipment after the word DPW and Bob Kavanaugh's public comment? I have no places. You know, you go on vacation, you abstain the first vote. What is it? Yeah, really.
I don't have comment, so
I'll make it.
Trustee Baskin,
I'll second. Go ahead, Liz. I'll second.
Trustee Corvus, discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Where else would say that's me? First off, thank you to Gina Morosi, Mark Black, Ray Otten, our Ballston Spot Fire Department, Ballston Spot Police Department, our DPW staff, and many others for a great 9/11 ceremony last night. As somber as it is a show of collective work, as always, to get our community together to remember the events of 9/11 in 2001, 21 years ago. It's 25 years old. It just, time flies. Also want to thank the Strategic or Comprehensive Plan Committee for their work on August 30th during the visioning meeting that they held. Saw a lot of folks out there and on Zoom as well. And it seemed like we all arrived at very similar answers and thoughts around the table. So it's good to see everybody on the same page with what needs to be worked on and what they love about our community as well. Want to let you know that after reviewing things with our treasurer and then with the county, ultimately, we made a determination this week that after many years of ping pong, the Doubleday Woods Drive, which is also known as Eleanor Street, is something that belongs to actually the village. This came looking at tax maps that the county possesses, etc. This has two implications. Number one, the sidewalk and asphalt area that is all torn up and causes a lot of issues for people entering and exiting that facility is going to finally get redone by DPW. So we are happy about that. They're going to work with the staff over at Doubleday Woods to make sure that the timing of that is known by the residents, because obviously the doctor's appointments, etc. We have to make sure that they have access or ways out and all that. Number two, it also means that the village owns half their parking lot as a result of that determination. And so later in executive session, we're going to dive into what the next steps are to sort of alleviate that issue if that is the choice of the board ultimately. So we will get into that later. But I think the first part is, yes.
I was just curious, have we made a determination that that area that's right adjacent to Route 50 is our property and not in DOT? Right?
So the general consensus here is through DPW's discussion, we've got a lot of back and forth on it, is they will not be taking out the concrete apron that is past the sidewalk, because that is a drainage structure that their nurse would flood out, and so Doubleday Woods flood out that area if it was taken out. What they are going to do is they're going to cut the sidewalk out and the adjacent asphalt that is falling apart and replace it with all asphalt and crosswalk it, because there are ADA pads to either side of it. It's also a lot easier to maintain. And then the other question is, what village street has concrete running through it ultimately as well? So for now, we'll keep the concrete, that's the state's portion of it. If we choose to repave it at a later date, we'll figure out with DOT and the state what to do with that exactly, how to maintain that the best way and for continuity purposes, etc. It's not nearly in as bad shape as the sidewalk itself. It's actually holding up pretty well. There is a little bit of a dip you'll encounter when you go over it, but it's not nearly that boom, boom, boom that you get when you go into the driveway area around it. Okay, thank you. No problem. Speaking of that area, we have an answer 3 months later than we anticipated from DOT. I can tell you from everything you've told me that DOT is behind on a lot of things right now because of the amount of things they're taking on. So This is about crosswalks on Route 50 in Ballston Spa, specifically Church Avenue. I will jump ahead to the parts you probably want to know about. We reviewed the crash history within the corridor from for the 10-year period from January 1st, 2011 to December 31st, 2021. Found no reported collisions involving a pedestrian within this corridor. There was one reported pedestrian collision to the south where a 14-year-old was struck by a northbound motorist in the vicinity of Martin Drive. Without the presence of a marked crosswalk, we cannot justify the installation of rectangular rapid flashing beacons or RRFBs. Given the pedestrian crossing activity that was observed, the installation of marked crosswalks may be beneficial. However, before a marked crosswalk may be installed, proposed crossing location is required to meet the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, by having the appropriate curb cuts and wheelchair accessible ramps. Unfortunately, New York State DOT does not currently have a contract in this vicinity that could include the installation of wheelchair accessible ramps in the area. This does not preclude the Village of Ballston Spa from undertaking the work necessary to install ADA compliant pedestrian facilities under a highway work permit issued from our Saratoga County residency. It is our practice that crosswalk markings are used to connect pedestrian facilities on both sides of the highway. If the village would like to consider the installation of ADA compliant facilities, we'd suggest consideration be given to a crosswalk at Trumbull Avenue and Rosewood Court. The east sidewalk ends just south of this location. Another location the village may wish to consider installation of ADA compliant facilities is at Doubleday Woods Road. If the village were to construct the ADA compliant facilities to connect the sidewalks along Route 50 at one or both locations, we would arrange to have MUTCD compliant signs and crosswalk markings installed. Once these are in place, we would consider reviewing the pedestrian activity again at the newly established crossing or crossings to determine if enhanced pedestrian warning devices may be warranted. Essentially, what we knew already basically back in April, May, when we were talking about this is exactly what DOT has confirmed. Right now, we're in a position where DPW is underwater as it is doing paving or trying to get paving done, including this new Doubleday Woods small piece as well, getting crosswalks laid, et cetera. So this is something that eventually they'll probably be able to take on, but I don't know if they're gonna be able to take it on in the next month or two because of everything that's going on.
I mean, if the cross was a double day, couldn't that be done along with the repairs and
I'll be
be a
honest,
little
Liz,
bit more efficient?
I don't think putting a double day is a good idea because of the curve that leads into double day. I just don't know without something more than a sign on the street, if that's the right spot for this, because of people looking around at 30 to 40 miles per hour, they're not seeing it in time, but
Yeah, I would agree, and I've done extensive study just being there and surveying residents, and it would be better to have it south of there on Trumbull Road. So the good news is, if we put in the ramps, they're saying they're gonna do the signs in the
Yep.
crosswalks, so that's excellent. I don't know that there's a huge emergency to do those. I'm not sure if, I don't know what your timing is on the driveway, the double day, but I might put the crosswalk ahead of that potentially. Are you planning to do double day driveway immediately?
having spoken to Doubleday residents, they have more interest in getting that thing resolved than the crosswalk. Even they do care about the crosswalk, don't get me wrong, but they seem to be most excited about that aspect of it. I think realistically, this is the other problem. The DOT's delays on things. What we probably need to do is do a date in the forward future. Will identify to DOT as to when this will be conducted, get the work permit in place, and then they'll be in a position to schedule it, because they're not gonna be able to schedule it with just a couple days notice or anything like that. They're gonna be probably months.
It's not gonna happen this season. You know, we could probably get it queued up so that when the weather breaks early on in spring, we can start moving forward with it.
Yeah.
But
I'm a little concerned about, I mean, I understand the steps, put in a crosswalk and then evaluate whether you need one of those beacons, but we're talking about 50. And I think just a crosswalk, just, maybe, I don't know, if we can put one of those center of the signs and can't do it.
State road.
State road. It's just that I'm afraid people won't pay attention to the crosswalk.
Well, this was kind of my concern in the first place, is that timeline, we have to figure that out, because I don't want a long delay in between when those ramps are put in. Oh, there's gonna be a place where I can cross, like, people might think that way. But without those protections, people go fast. It's
Yeah.
kind of
No,
alarming.
so I'm really worried about, there haven't been even, if we do a nice bold crosswalk there. People stopping on 50 is without some sort of signal or something makes me nervous.
I mean, it's gonna have the standard sign package, much like we're looking at for the crosswalks. So there's gonna be pedestrian ahead sign, there will be, would be double faced, pedestrian symbol signs with
Yeah.
a down arrow. So it's much more than just across the.
Yeah.
We're talking
Maybe
flashing
some
lights
areas.
too. It's not just.
No, the
No,
flashing
just
lights aren't going in until we first put in the crosswalk and then they evaluate. So that's where I'm a little nervous. If they
Yeah.
put in the whole system, it would be fine, because then you've got these lights people are gonna pay attention to.
Would it be, I'm sorry, would it be similar to where Van Buren and 50, by St. Mary's and Baptist Church there, but that is pretty noticeable. Is that what you're referring to?
They would
Sean?
certainly be laddered. I can't think they wouldn't be, and the signs themselves,
Well, the thing with an RFP is even if you said, okay, we're gonna pay for it. We're gonna pay for the whole shebang. State's still gonna say, if you don't meet the warrant, you can't have it.
You might as well let them pay for it on their own
Oh,
warrant.
no,
That's it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
Thanks, sir.
I just don't want them having accidents happening then to justify the lights. So it just makes me a little nervous, but if that's the way it is, that's the way it is.
So my thought is, obviously, we just got this late on Friday, and I wanted to evaluate it with Jeff. I've never had a chance to get him to talk about it today. So let's get DPW a little bit involved with this too, to have that discussion about timing, et cetera, and then we can move forward with ideas from there. Again, it won't be a tomorrow thing, as Sean said, things are way backed up over there at DOT as it is, so.
But it's good, we finally got some progress on that and on the driveway. I mean, I went by there and there's a hole in the asphalt.
I'm well aware, driving over to say hi to them, I was like, thank God this is going away. Water report, talked to Don Rhodes pretty deeply on Friday as well, and there are some things he's asking for me to help finish things out for him. We did discuss the possibility of a need to go inside the tank on John Street to drain it and evaluate it with a deeper evaluation to see just what the level of adhesion could be. We're also evaluating the cell phone contacts, and Jennifer is working with us on this to identify exactly what is up there, so that if we can work on getting a monopole next to the water tower to take the apparatus off and put it on the monopole in a permanent fashion, it'll help us A, repaint, and B, keep it in good condition, because according to what it's stating, deterioration occurred in the area where the apparatus was, more so than not. So it's something that we are looking at. You would think it's an easy process, but trying to recreate the history of what's up there. And even if we went up there ourselves, we probably wouldn't be able to identify what was what and whose was whose. So we're working on it. This is going to be a little bit of a process to get through. Yes.
Are we looking at getting an option on replacing?
He is pretty clear that a replacement is not in the best interest of the village. Actually, his idea is that it's going to be a repaint approach. Whether or not it's to go down to bare metal or not is the question in his mind after reading the reports. We'll all get a little bit more information from Don, probably individually at certain points here coming up. So I would say, let me get him the rest of the information he needs, and then he'll finish his report, and then we'll have some Q&A time with him.
I mean, as the email I sent you, it's pretty obvious, glass line bolted tanks, there's no issues, and there's very little maintenance, so, I mean.
But the cost is kind of
Right,
the
we have
flag.
to do a cost comparison.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to see.
So-
I mean, definitely, the two options, and if it is very obvious after some analysis, I know, there's probably a good engineer, but I'm a numbers person, I like to see the numbers.
And while we're on the subject, I guess, this is gonna seriously transform the scope of the water feasibility study. We're deciding we're gonna keep the John Street tank, because there was in their scope, alternatives at other locations, but if we're gonna sink money into fixing that tank, obviously they go away.
Let's see where this is going. And like I said, let's finish up what we've got with him because having those studies helps him finish that up and not fully. We got a couple other things he needs right now.
But he is planning to produce a written report
Yes.
on all this.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why I called him on Friday to see where we were, what he needed, and I was going to reconvene with him this week. Village offices, repair of the vault, the wall, and the exterior. Labella, Lanson, is it called? Lanson, I don't know is his name. Came by, who was originally involved with this process. Jeff and I walked through with them to look at the vault, the retaining wall, and the exterior. The numbers that came back with contingency fees came back in the over $500,000 range with about $35,000-ish for the vault, if memory serves, and about $85,000-ish without those contingencies for the retaining wall. Realistically, while the number sounds lower, the reason why it's dropped off in the 700,000 is because, as Lanson told me, don't treat the building as a historical building because it is not a historical building in the perspective of when you redo it, you can do it in a way that will still look good, but not be matching up things perfectly. And that's where I guess things went off the rails last time around because whoever was doing it was looking at it as historical in its true meaning. So that's why the number came down a little bit, but still probably right around the area for the retaining wall for the vault. It is work that is not going to be conducted by DPW based on their assessment. The vault will require possibly trying to get through the coils under the sidewalk, which is going to be no small feat ultimately, because that's how you would fill from the top side in after you rubble out the vault. You'll have to put the cement through to basically finish off the whole thing there. The wall itself is way over their heads as well because of the level of work that will need to be done there. So it will not be an in-house job at all. And definitely something that we're gonna have to talk about at later dates. I think right now, probably we got more than enough things to look at tonight, but I just wanted to at least give an indication of where things were with that.
You said 35,000.
I think it was 35. You've got it here, you know, send it to everybody.
That's for filling it with the foam that was there.
It's
one of the-
flowable fill.
Yeah.
And what it is it's a very low PSI concrete and it's very fluid. So it'll fill in voids.
Like where you rubble it, yeah.
Yeah. And then it hardens. It's not structural per se, but it does occupy the space. And it would, yes, prevent, cracks or collapse.
And what about the equipment that's in there? I mean, they've got valves in there and then they've got the tubing in there.
It's got to be looked at because there's an assumption that most of it is not really working any further, but whether or not it's all obsolete is a question that would have to be finalized.
I would think the tubing is the PEX that's feeding the heating. That would.
Yeah, but you could probably build a chase around that.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just wondered, because I went down there and, whoa, could have it for home.
You first. The county talked to Steve Bolger, the county administrator, and they are finishing up their second round of interviews with department heads to evaluate spaces there, et cetera. They're basically on schedule as far as they're concerned. It was to go a little past Labor Day, and that's where we are basically right now. So they're finishing up, and they are hoping to have a report very soon as to what to do next. And nothing has really changed there. He told me that he will keep me posted as well as everybody else as to what the next steps are once we see that report come through. And finally, I see Dana here, and so I wanted to say to the BSBPA, thank you for the ice cream social. Great job there getting it rescheduled. The Union Fire Company van was very, very good, and the ice cream was even better. But who am I to say that? But it was a great thank you for the opportunity to have the year forward survey table there as well. Very good to get the responses there and get people to see what's going on with respect to that as well. That's all I got. Let's start with Bernadette and we'll go down to her liaison reports.
Yeah. So just a brief update from the BSBPA. Great news to start with. They received a $15,000 grant from the Saratoga County Nonprofit Relief Grant Program. It's going to assist the farmers market, the events and general operations. Can't say that word apparently today. Really excited. I think when our organizations get additional funds after COVID, I know it was very hard for all our organizations. It's just exciting. They have been working with Prolific Marketing, after we gave them a little boost with some marketing funds. If you haven't seen their Facebook page and other items, they targeted a lot of track visitors specifically, I know, but they're doing a lot of just promoting the community, promoting Ballston Spa. They wrapped up their concerts, movies in the park. And I know a lot of kids are probably happy Tonto had a second showing when it rained that first time. And then they're planning for the annual car show, which I know everybody loves. That's going to be October 9th, right? Yeah. Oh my God. And so they're always looking for volunteers. So Dana's here. Donna's here, but Donna's not in charge of that anymore. So don't bother Donna.
Is it Sunday or Saturday?
It's Sunday.
Sunday. Okay.
And then just Small Business Saturday will be coming up in November. All these things are planning for the holiday parade, which I know so many people look forward to. So volunteers, please be here.
Sean, I know we have the new business and crosswalks coming up, but you have anything else DPW wise?
I guess, as we were speaking about their full plate, I just like to let the public know that because they're trying to, walk and chew gum and play the violin at the same time. There is going to probably be a period of time where paving extends through October into November as a result. So I just want to let people know to bear with them, because I also understand in about a month, people are going to start raking. So please bear with them. Please, if you can hold off putting piles out, please do so. I mean, they'll start collection, but that's at the discretion of the mayor when he tells them to start. But given the fact that they're, because of all the crosswalks and the other pedestrian improvements they're making, they're going to have to delay paving, so that's going to push their paving schedule later in the year.
Thank you. Ben.
People should know, friend of the Cateros is having a Pedal the Creek event. It's a very nice bike ride with different distances, and I've done it a couple times. It's like the bike, it's a great event, it's a good fundraiser. So that's this Saturday, 17th. Just Google it, friend of the Cateros. Want to thank the Wiswall volunteers. They worked again last weekend. You see the black tarp down there on Wiswall. Hopefully it'll help with the Bishop's Way. And there's been some discussion. I guess there's not total consensus on whether the benches need to be replaced or can be rehabbed. Or we have some, I don't know the first name, but some woodworking expert who's gonna just call it and try to figure that out. Arts Committee is working on their charter. They're continuing to plan for the mural. They're still figuring that out. Ballston area seniors, if you look up on the website, they have newsletters. They have a lot of different events and information newsletters, more than I can summarize here. But their next trip is October 17th, and you're supposed to register for that by September 15th. So I'd say that. It's the Essex Connecticut Criminal Vote Exclusion. BACC, they have an acting director. Her name is Colleen Russo. I invited her to speak to us at some future meeting.
Probably late October might be the best at this point.
She says that feel free to share that BAC has several school-age shelter openings in the morning at the main center. They also plan to be offering open gym for the community Mondays and Fridays from 6 to 9 p.m. Tentatively scheduled to start September 19th. They are going to start, or they'd like to start drop-in childcare from 6 to 9 for the first Fridays in October. So VSBP, you might want to just touch base with them. They're also relaunching their teen program, and they do want to discuss reopening skate park if at all possible.
Great. Chris, you hear that? Liz?
For the library, there is an event coming up Saturday at 11 a.m. on September 17th. If you don't want to go on the site tour, you can go to a book signing and reading, learned about the Gilded Age here in Saratoga Springs. Dr. Hollis Palmer, he'll present his newest book. Books will be available for purchase and signing. It's called Annandale. Also, Friends of the Library is sponsoring a event also on a Saturday, the week next, after this week, September 24th at 10 a.m. to noon. And it is a presentation exploring foraging. So Ann Best will give a talk inside the library, which will include foraging safety, do's and don'ts of foraging, identifying wild plants and wild berries, according to season, and time will be allowed for questions and answers. So if you're interested in foraging, this is an interesting presentation. I actually attended the county.
Good luck.
Oh, I attended the county building and grounds meeting on September 6th and heard what the mayor said, that they're not quite done yet. They are going to move the family court, part of them, into a mobile office because of the uncertainty about what they're doing for office space. And they're also planning a trip to Dutchess County to see what they did. They expect by mid-September an initial concept. The two alternatives for future space configuration will be developed. First alternative will be primarily to utilize existing county buildings with recommendations for new and additional spaces as required to accommodate current space needs and growth. The second alternative will consider relocating county operations. I did have a chance to speak to Matt Fetch, the chair, after, and he indicated that no matter what the decision, it will be a long process of before the final outcome on this. So and also I asked him if he could estimate how many employees work in the building, and he thought it was somewhere around 500.
Commissioner's report, Julie's not here, but there's two things that have come up today, one of which may need a motion because it developed literally in the afternoon, and bear with me on this. First, I'll tell you that related to the audit, we talked to Nathan Panucci over at Teal Becker, and basically told him, hey, we don't deal in floating numbers here when it comes to things we have to pay in a contract with respect to audit, and they're more or less not willing to do an audit without a financial statement for us based on the nature of the business right now. And so realistically, they're only going to price us for an audit with a financial statement. His email today was, hi, Julia, in regards to the proposal sent the other day, we can do a base year price of not to exceed $23,000 instead of the range of $20,000 to $30,000. Obviously, we need to get an agreement and finalize that with Carlos' assistance, but it's something that I wanted to at least get consensus on here for your okay going in that direction-ish while we try to develop exactly what's what and who's who and the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm in favor of one with the financial statements. I think it's worth, particularly if it's on the low end of that range.
Let me add that last year was 9,000 without a financial statement. However, a couple things. Number one, like I said, they're not going to do it without a financial statement. It sounds like any further. Number two, they are kind of complaining that it was 9,000, stating that they lost money on the situation ultimately. So the price is going to go up for a non-financial statement version, no matter what, probably to the tune of, I'm guessing, $13,000, $14,000, or $15,000 total. So the financial statement with the reality is adding probably about $8,000, $9,000 to this, not an entire $14,000 as it might seem like from the price drop.
Yeah, and I think given the fact that we're applying for grants, et cetera, and oftentimes they require, financial statements, and, we do have, what, a total budget of over 5 million?
5 to 6, yeah.
Yeah, I think spending 23,000 on an audit is wise.
Also, one note too about the USDA single audit scenario. There is talk that the federal government may actually change the threshold to something well in excess of the $1 million of USDA money that we are lined up to get right now. And so we may need or may not need to do that ultimately. And we talked to him about whether or not we could drop that out of it if it became changed. And he said, by all means, again, we'll have to make sure it's in the agreement stated in that manner, but just to give you full
That's
disclosure on
an
that.
additional audit that's on top of.
Yes.
The normal.
Yes.
You think it'll be 23,000 or more every year, or the
That's
first
base year. That's base
Is
year.
it less subsequent years because a lot of work's been done already? Or
No,
it'll be the same every year?
it's gonna be the same every year, probably with inflation on top of it, but we'll get to see, I think, again, this is why I want to see the agreement reflecting this and how they're wording it. I think generally what you're gonna say is some kind of COLA expense on top of it every year, on top of the 23,000, but we'll see what they say. Okay, number 2, we are kind of having the speed up game being played by the company that is handling our sweeper, which is one of the pieces of DPW equipment. The sweeper, as you may remember, it was a Timco 435 sweeper standard equipment, estimated to be $198,095 and no cents to be paid upon delivery of the unit. The company needs us to basically sign off on a purchase order now for it. With respect to the original plan on some of this, to go back, the conversation with Julia was essentially, look, if we are not getting all the equipment all at once, we could probably pay for it at least for now out of fund balance. And then we could look at a bond anticipation note along the way if we're starting to get stretched on this. We thought maybe the back truck at $400,000+ would have been the first one to kind of come at us like this. And if that was the case, we might have really needed the bond anticipation note just to be safe. This being half the price or less than half the price of the back truck, I would suggest that perhaps this would be right for us to have a motion and approval to go forward with. It is based on state contract pricing, as was verified by the USDA in this process. And it is something that is definitely needed and wanted. I will tell you from Jeff earlier tonight, just before the meeting, I think it was, he texted me and to let me know if manufacturer stays with the current date, the sweeper could be delivered in January, so it wouldn't be paid for until January. If we chose the delay build date, could take delivery in maybe March or April at the best. Still want a PO this week, purchase order this week, the company, we can talk tomorrow, but I think that under the circumstances and knowing that there is such a limited supply of these machines, I'm prepared to suggest that a motion and approval of this would be warranted, knowing that USDA is likely covering this at this point in time.
How likely is it, and what's the timing of the USDA?
The USDA won't pay until all pieces of equipment are in. The only thing they're waiting for from us is actually the audit contract and Carlos Firm's contract to be finished up for the bond and grant work, grant work here. Or it is bond, a USDA bond.
Do we have an expected sort of schedule of the other equipment? Because we lay out almost 200,000 and then all of a sudden the back truck comes in and we gotta cover that.
Is Jeff on the Zoom? If you can see, like,
Yeah, I just wondered what's the
Right, how often does
timeline?
this kind of repeat?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's almost good if they happen close and then we can get the SDA money to cover it. If it stretches out, then we're, essentially financing those purchases.
let's see if I can jump in, line avoid getting the man himself who deals with us every day.
I mean, I realize we're subject to whatever delivery schedules are available, but if you have some idea.
He might be choosing to sleep at 7:30. Jeff, it's Frank. You're live at our meeting right now, and the board wanted to know what the timing looked like for the other pieces of equipment, because as you know, we will not be able to get the USDA payment until all pieces of equipment are in. So can you give us a little bit of some thoughts for the rest of those 5 pieces, or the other 5 pieces?
Yeah, I don't know that I have it memorized, or I've got exact dates. I could say the back truck will be spring summer, April, hopefully. The loader was approximately a year, maybe shorter, so that would be maybe July or August of next year. Some trucks could be a year plus from when we ordered, which whatever was a month or two ago.
And there's a pickup truck also. Is
I
that,
haven't even actually ordered that yet. Yeah, so yeah.
what's the time frame on those? Looking like better than the rest of the equipment?
Oh, yeah, probably 2 to 3 months.
And the general feeling here is that if we need to bridge, we can go for a bond anticipation note if we're starting to get drained in this process. So obviously you don't want to do that and start paying interest until you have to out of protection. And again, we have 3 months here, it sounds like, before we take delivery of the sweeper to make the decision if we wanted to go in that direction before we even pay a dime to anybody for any equipment with respect to this.
So his timeline is delivery or when we lay out the money? We lay out the money when it gets delivered, right?
We lay out the money when it's delivered. USDA gives us the money when the last piece is delivered.
So, I mean, I think Julia might be able to just let us know what that's gonna cost us,
Right.
given
Yeah.
his timeline.
Yeah. Again, I don't necessarily think you pull a pin on this whole thing for a BAN for just $200,000. I think when you start getting into the $400,000 to $500,000 range, then we start talking, knowing what our fund balance is sitting at currently. With Jeff on the phone, can I get a motion to approve the village to enter into a purchase order with Timco for a 435 sweeper standard equipment for a price not to exceed $198,095.00. This reflects state contract pricing as verified by the USDA, and to authorize the mayor to execute the agreement or purchase order related to this motion. Trustee Raymond,
One second.
trustee Cormos, discussion. All in favor? Actually, hold on, I can't do that yet. I do have to allow public comment since this is a spontaneous motion. I've got to get in that habit. Does anybody in the room have any public comment?
Do it.
I do it. Okay, that was pretty good public comment. Anybody on Zoom? Last call. Hand up, no. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Jeff, have a good night.
New equipment.
I mean, I've been the cleanest way to do it, but at least you got what you needed, right? Okay, presentations, we're gonna reverse order here out of respect, because Kevin has some driving to do tonight. Last week, I met with Kevin and a couple of his friends he works with concerning their ideas about broadband and Wi-Fi locally. And I told them, hey, your timing is impeccable because we are looking at this near forward grant opportunity, and broadband in our downtown area especially is seemingly deficient by a lot of people's opinions and standards, and Wi-Fi possibilities as well. So Kevin was good enough to throw together a presentation related to this to tell us what they can offer, what the village needs to do essentially, and where we can go from here, especially if we can get the near forward grant. Go ahead, sir.
Going here.
That's fine.
So, good evening, I'm Kevin Lynch with Slick Network Solutions. I didn't bring a bunch of fancy slides. I just wanted to talk to everybody about our company, our history, and why we're interested in having a Ballston spot. So our company was founded initially as the Nickelville Telephone Company in 1902. So we've been around for a few years. We're located at the very northern edge of the Adirondack Park. We're about 20 minutes to the east of Potsdam. We don't even have a blinking light, but we have a company. And in the mid-90s, we formed Slick Network Solutions, which was our internet service provider. So we started with dial-up, and then very quickly we built a fiber optic ring between the 4 towns in St. Lawrence County: Canton, Potsdam, Augsburg, Messina, supporting the colleges, the high schools, and the medical for that. Through there, we worked with USDA with some grants in the 2012-2014 timeframe, built out about 800 miles of fiber, past about 8,000 homes, very rural, providing gigabit class service to residents. We then participated in several New York State grants, and we built out additional infrastructure in Franklin, Essex, Clinton, Warren, Washington counties. And we recently converted an old cable system in Hamilton County, speculator, to fiber to the home. So it's kind of the business we're in. We're all locally based, so all our customer support is right now in St. Lawrence County. Most work remote. We have field support. We have staff all over the North Country and down into Warren County. We just hired some folks in Chester County. We just hired a gentleman in Saratoga. So we're expanding our footprint. So what we do is it's fiber optic, which is a really long-term infrastructure. Once it's in place, changing electronics at the end, it can kind of grow almost infinitely. The fiber we initially put out there, we were running at 10 megabits, and now we're running at 100 gigabits. So it's just same fiber can handle a lot of capacity. We met with the mayor last week. He talked about the New York Forward program and thought that was a really good match for what we've done. We've worked with several municipalities. So we built a fiber ring in Saranac Lake to connect. We passed about 100 businesses and almost 300 homes, and we connected the municipal facilities together. So the water treatment plant, to the police station, to the village hall, to the rec center. And so they have a high-speed network where you can share data. We worked in, we provide services in Lake Placid and in a lot of places like that you've heard of, as well as this recent build. We're in North Creek and Warrensburg, and then almost all of Washington County. We run quite a bit of fiber there as well. So when we met with the mayor, he kind of showed us the footprint. I don't know if you could throw that up there. That'd be great. Kind of showed us the footprint of the grant area that the village is looking at for the New York Forward program. And so what we did on that, we took a look at the existing infrastructure. And so if you see in the dark lines, that's the existing pole lines. So that's where you have power. That's where we would put our facilities. So we would attach our fiber optic onto the existing utility poles. And with that, we would be able to cover all of the buildings within the New York Forward footprint. Most of those are served to the backside. There's a few pole lines that do run down the streets, but we get into the various buildings. We looked at that, so we'd be able to serve like the Bottle Museum and along that road.
I asked Ellie, don't worry, I
Yeah.
asked.
You know, the village hall, the police station, the fire station, plus there's a lot of the mixed use building. And so our intent is we would have business class services that we would be able to deliver to the businesses, but then we'd also offer residential fiber-based services. One of the big differentiators on fiber, it's very low latency and very quick and snappy, but also our uploads are the same as our downloads. So when you're doing more cloud-based computing applications or like doing Zoom and things like that, you're not constrained by your upload. You get really good upload speeds. With that, you know, we have a full range of services for small businesses. We can do, you know, support credit card machines and small phone systems, more advanced phone systems if it's needed. And for residential, we can do speeds up to 2 gigabit. And for businesses, we can do speeds up to 10 gigabit and custom higher than if it was needed. But we really haven't found much application beyond that. We work in addition to in the residential, we've done a lot also with, like I said, the governmental, the education, and the medical. And that's another area as well, with that fiber backbone in there, brings a lot of telemedicine options into areas that can be done because of the quality of the service. The other thing we talked to the mayor about that we could do is in some of our communities, we also do community Wi-Fi. So in addition to the fiber optic backbone, we've got a program right now in the village of Potsdam. Any business that has $100 a month or more in business with us, which is usually covers a pretty high speed connection and a phone connection, we give them a separate Wi-Fi with a dedicated connection for their customers. So like coffee shops, restaurants, any kind of retail business. We ran that Slick Free Wi-Fi. That's not an additional cost to the business. But what that allows is people walk the downtown area, they can get Wi-Fi very easily. We did that with the town of Long Lake. And what I thought they did was pretty innovative is the splash page. So after you connect, you know, it drops you off to that next page. It's the calendar of events, what's happening in Long Lake today. That's a big tourist community, and that's a really nice thing for them because, you know, you get on to check your email and think, oh, there's, you know, whatever today. They do all kinds of fun stuff in Long Lake and keep people around. So those are some of the ideas we've tossed out. What we'd like to work with the community is locating an equipment cabinet, which is not a huge space, about 8 feet by 8 feet. Ideally, in a lot of communities, we work with fire departments or police departments. A lot of times they have a generator backup, and then we can, do an exchange of services. We can provide them fiber connectivity between different facilities or for public safety. We recently did a project in Hamilton County where we provided dark fiber from the public safety building to one of their antennas about 12 miles away to cover a greater area. And so they have that fiber connectivity there. So there's some different options we can do to partner with the village to bring in this infrastructure. And I just turn it over for questions or comments.
Well, in general, as you know, the Near Forward program is grant-based, which we're going to be doing outlays of money for different programs. What would the work for the cost to the village be essentially? What would you look to the village for if we were ever to award a contract to you for something like this?
Yeah, so we would look support for things, like I said, like perhaps a facility location. So building it's a small 8x8, essentially concrete pad with a little shed over it that we can put the equipment in, connect with AC, connect to backup power, preferably a place that already had a generator, utilize some existing resource.
You kind of spotted EML firehouses, a possibility.
That's a potential. It's nice centrally located. The firehouse has backup generation already, and then we could provide, free service to the firehouse. We could work out a lease, much like we did with in Hamilton County, and that seems to work really well. To talk a little bit about the process, just from a timing perspective, when we go to attach on existing poles, we have to make sure there's enough room so the wires are high enough off the ground for safety, but low enough below electric so our workers are safe. So each of those poles gets looked at and engineered, and then they come back and say, okay, we need to move wires up or down, or in some cases, there may be a few poles that would need to be replaced. Working through the grants, oftentimes we'll do some in-kind towards the match as well. So the efforts we would go in to build this infrastructure could count towards matching. I don't know exactly what the matching requirements are.
There's no match actually.
Oh, okay.
There's some assumption that you may be outlaying some of your own money if you're doing public works, but it's not clear in that respect that you have any requirement of that match.
Okay. So, and then we just be looking for support. Sometimes we run into, like, if we have to replace a pole, a certain property owner, we may just need to work with them to make sure that we can, do that at least obtrusively. And any permitting or right-of-way issues that we run into, but that's usually pretty rare. One of the things we've looked at with this project is we wouldn't be doing any buried work unless there was already additional buried work being planned. It's advantageous to do what's called a dig once. So if you are going to dig up something that makes sense, then put conduit in. But we wouldn't be looking to disturb anything just for our facilities.
And I brought up to Kevin that Front Street will probably be dug up in some format next year in the spring, and that if we start moving forward with something like this, we'll be cognizant to flag them as to the timing and everything else with respect to it.
And that would be the opportunity then to put in a duct system, and that way you can reduce the overhead wires. It gets a nicer aesthetic than your downtown areas do not have.
How do you think this would help in terms of the Near Forward program's goals for getting rid of upper story vacancies, to create jobs, to create business and ground floor, et cetera?
Yeah, I think it would be great. I mean, it's definitely, when we design our networks, there's some providers that will bring fiber in and they really only target, enterprise type customers. Whereas we really do everything from small mom and pop businesses, we do the residential. And so in a mixed use facility, everyone in that building would have access to dedicated gigabit fiber. So when we do our fiber installs, we're bringing fiber right into the home. And then from there, it goes to your Wi-Fi or a hardwire if you would like. Yes, ma'am.
For a residence or a small business, what would the monthly charges be, and how does that compare to, what you're paying now for?
Spectrum?
Yeah. So, depending on the community, the rates vary a little bit. And obviously, one thing you'll find when you have a second provider, it tends to see higher speeds and lower prices. Competition works. We have packages right now that start at $62.95 a month. We have one that goes up to $99, and then we do custom packages above that. So
it doesn't include the other, it includes internet and phone, right?
So the $62.95 a month is your internet connection, and then we have a $29 limited phone plan that you can add on to that if you want, or there's different options there. At this time, we're not expanding our TV footprint. We do in some markets offer TV, but most people are doing streaming, and there's some challenges with the current franchising system in New York State to do that. But what we've seen, a large majority of our customers are, again, they're taking their choice of streaming service. So if they want live TV, they do something like a Hulu or YouTube TV, or they do their Netflix. A lot of them do both. They can kind of pick what works for them. And with that fiber connection, even our lowest package right now, which is a 50 by 50 fiber connection, that's enough to run multiple 4K streams, you know.
Right, and I've been
Very-
seeing in the newspaper that there is other larger organizations bringing in fiber into this area. Not particularly Saratoga, I think is starting to get it.
Well, Saratoga's an interesting story. I'll let him kind of tell you a little bit about what's going on there.
Yeah, I know Saratoga. I mean, I don't want to say a whole lot because I don't know the kind, but I know that they've been working on that for several years and they're trying to do a buried technology. And like I said, we're trying to stay with a more tried and true aerial technology, which with fiber optic, that's been done for 40, 50 years since fiber optics first came out in the 70s. So, you know, we're not trying to do anything crazy innovative there. We're doing a tried and true technology that's going to get into the community quickly. It's going to be very supportable going forward.
And as far as, I mean, I can see the New York forward covering the target area, but
Mhm.
I live outside the target
Sure.
area.
So with
What's
that,
the cost to, you know, is there a cost to the individual residents or business for expanding this system?
so what this does is this gives us a very nice foundation. It gives us a base footprint to get started that we can then extend off of. In most of the areas we go out right now, we have installation fees anywhere from 50 to 150, depending whether people are having an aerial. In some cases, you know, it comes to the pole and then it varies to the house. So that's a little bit more costly to do the buried. But it's very affordable. If we could, you know, partner with the village and get this downtown footprint, then that would set us up in the future to expand. We've already talked to the mayor, looked at some very, you know, nearby locations that like, I'm not sure, is the library in the footprint?
The library will be in what we anticipate to extend the footprint to, because Waverly as well. So we're going to go down one block, and expand the library, Waverly, et cetera. So yes.
And the other thing too, as well, is on some of those where we're on the edge, we're obviously going to serve the other side of the street. We're not just going to go into the grant footprint and ignore that. No, we'd extend that out. But we would then look to expand. A lot of that depends again on getting on those poles in that time frame, working with utilities and the costs associated with that.
A certain number of residences or businesses to sign up to your service in order for you to run.
We would, as we start to expand, we would look at that kind of a full model where we would, you know, identify the communities. But what we've honestly found in a lot of the areas where we build it, that's really not a challenge. Fiber, it's a, you know, it's the latest technology, it's very reliable, it's very high speed, and we do really well when we compete.
My 99-year-old mother moved from Rhode Island where she had fiber and does not have it now. And I'll tell you, she could join.
And I think the other thing that we really work on, and you mentioned about the job, so, you know, all of our customer service is local. We do in the evening rollover right now. As we grow, we'll bring more evening staff on. But, you know, we want people that live in the market that understand. So when you call up and said, hey, I had a storm last night, I think something happened, like, yeah, we you know, because I live here or there. So we'll be looking to hire folks in the area. Like I said, we've already hired a couple for our outside plant supporting the infrastructure, but we'll be looking for, you know, customer service folks as well. And what we've seen in a lot of communities with that mixed use model works really well. You got the businesses, and then you also have a lot of folks now that can work from home or do a hybrid work schedule, which is also very attractive. Maybe it's 2 days in the office, 3 days at home, or maybe, you know, I have a friend who's a developer. He spends a month in Boston and 3 weeks a month in Colton, New York, because he's got the fiber connectivity. He doesn't have to. So there's a lot of different options there that work for folks.
So is there an upfront cost to the village of your board?
Not at this time. There's not an upfront cost. What we're looking for is just if we can, you know, partner on some like permitting things, make sure there's no issues there. We'd love to, you know, I think the fire department kind of runs independently a little bit, so I'd love to talk to folks in the fire department, see if that's something they're interested in.
We own the building, but we give them a certain level of autonomy.
You know, and if that doesn't work, we could find another location, but it's a nice location where it's at, and kind of central to the downtown region. But we're really not, you know, if successful, the grant that could help fund community Wi-Fi, where we could go instead of just doing the businesses. You know, one of the ideas might be is you put that down the main street, and then that way you've got this nice coverage. It wouldn't be for 24/7. It'd be kind of like business hours, and usually what you do is you disconnect every hour, because you don't want people on the apartments just having that kind of defeats the purpose. It's really for
They
people
want to
coming into.
cannibalize the business.
You don't want to cannibalize the business. You don't want to get poor performance. It's really for people coming into the downtown to be able to be connected and do what they need. You know, the other thing we've seen a lot up in Potsdam, we've got a couple coffee shops with our service and the Wi-Fi, and you see people come in and they'll work for several hours. One coffee shop actually built a conference room that can be rented out, and that's been very popular for, again, remote workers who, and just my observation, some of the younger remote workers like the idea of actually being around other people. And so having a place like that, they can come and work a few hours a day, when they're working a lot on Zoom and things like that. It's actually nice.
Say it again, you're gonna cut off the Wi-Fi at a certain hour?
So typically what we do is we do the Wi-Fi to business hours, and then when the business is kind of shut down, then that way residential, they're subscribing to services and they're getting the full suite. It's not really to do that.
Basically competing against yourself by getting free Wi-Fi.
Yeah, and what we see is when you have that fiber base, especially not only fiber, but you have option, it's going to increase property values. It's very attractive to have that kind of level of service where you can have gigabit service, or businesses can come in and have multi-gigabit service.
We have 2 members for our library committee that have been nodding and smiling all along this. I don't know if they have any questions for anybody else in the crowd that might have some. Right?
I was just wondering if there's been any thought with the Route 50 corridor project that's going on in South Milton and all the businesses that are at the north end. Has any of this project been linked to that at all?
We haven't so far. Really, we were in town. We met with the mayor and kind of said, hey, we were looking at this community. It looks like something that would be a good fit for us. And then we heard about the grant and said, well, let's kind of fast forward a little bit and take a look at the grant, see what we can do. So, we came up with this design, but those are definitely things that we would consider. And I know in talking with the mayor, there's some multi-dwelling units that are going in, so that we would make sure that have plenty of coverage to go in, so that's a nice thing when you have apartments coming in. We also do a fair amount of like senior living homes where we can bring connectivity in. That's really important. And again, now it's nice that you can actually do a FaceTime with relatives. You can't always get to see them. That's a really important
I
thing.
told Kevin about Double Big Woods, Mohegan Hills, and former Maplewood site as ideas, and Angelica development. What the likelihood is there, et cetera. So, that is technically in the downtown business district, but the other pieces technically aren't. But he's got ideas now as to places to focus if they want to expand. Go ahead.
One last question.
Yeah.
If we are interested in this, your company, and we don't get the grant,
Mhm.
would there be cost to us other than providing a location? So could we move forward?
I think we could move forward. I mean, we're not looking to, we're looking to build a good sustainable business model. So we're not coming saying, hey, we need you to do this and that. We'd ask you to work with us on, again, permits right away. There are some taxation issues we'd like to talk about, just because there are some challenges in the way that, unfortunately, in New York State, fiber optic is taxed differently than cable-based internet.
Yeah, there's taxes there.
And so we just like, to work with the community to see what could be done there, but none of those would be showstoppers. Those are just things we'd like to work with, and it would help accelerate the project. And I think the other thing to your question, we would definitely size it going in with the idea that we would expand, right? The incremental cost to go from, let's say, 144 fibers to 288 fibers is not actually, it's very small, because the cost is in the labor and attached to the poles and all of that work, that the actual fiber optic itself is not a huge increase in cost. So we would right size it with the idea that there would be, easily expanded.
I can see this being like a benefit to our community in the way that we're not thinking of yet. There's sometimes people that might have a device, but might have not been able to afford to pay their bill, and to have access to internet, to be able to go on, Wi-Fi calling. And I think that'd be huge for a population that might be struggling in your village. So
Bob Bush had a question too, but go ahead if you want to.
No, I was just going to comment on that. You brought up a very good point, and you'll see a lot about affordability with internet access and things like that. The federal government right now offers what's called the Affordable Connectivity Program, and so for qualified individuals, it's up to $30 a month off their broadband bill. And so with our base package starting at $60, that makes it a $30 a month service. It's $1 a day. That's not a crazy amount of money. And as you mentioned, and then this is a great opportunity. I know libraries do a great job of this. Having that broadband connection, you can save in a lot of different ways. There's online things you can do. There's a lot of cost avoidance you can do to make up the difference and be able to afford that $30 a month. So, we'd love to see that happen. Yes, sir.
I just out of curiosity, if the board were to go forward with it tonight, what's the time frame going live with it?
So the biggest challenge and the thing that we have least control over is getting access to the poles. So that the way that process is, we would apply to National Grid and Verizon and say we'd like to go to this pole. It's supposed to be a 90-day process. I will tell you, it's usually a 6 to 9 month minimum. But you know, we could try to accelerate that, and that's another area where we would come in and we would, you know, working with the utilities and say, you know, there's sometimes some different ways you can do to accelerate that. You know, but we're not talking multiple years. We're talking within inside of a year would be our goal. You know, and we would, you know, work to do that. Yeah.
And if we did do Front Street in March, April, May of next year, and warned you ahead of time,
We would be all over that. Yeah, absolutely. You know, an opportunity like that to get conduit in the ground is a really great thing to do.
So this can be done independently in your course, it's not like we have to do it in some kind of synchronized way with your forward.
No, we felt it was a very strong supporting that, and that there may be some additional things that New York Forward would enable other than doing it without it. So such as, you know, if you wanted to do community Wi-Fi, that would be something that we wouldn't typically do on our own. We would partner, and there would be some things like that. Or, you know, if it would able to accelerate getting a facility in place, we would want to look at that to put our equipment in.
Dana?
Oh, one of our business members on Front Street is listening in, and she just texted me that her spectrum bill just went up by $50 just today, so now she's up to 120. And so, and just from her perspective, this, you know, it's really good.
And I will tell you, you know, pricing wise, we obviously want to compete. We don't do promotional pricing. We don't do gimmick pricing. This is the price. We do have to adjust for inflation from time to time. But we you know, we definitely want to do a good product. And oftentimes what we do is if we have to, I can't promise this, but what we've done in some communities, when we do need to do a price increase, we do a bandwidth increase at the same time. We try to give you some value for that. So those are the types of things. So just recently we did, I think within the last year, we doubled all of our packages. So our price went up about $2 to $3 a package, and we doubled the speeds on all of the packages. So the other one that did go up, our top package, which was $99.95, went from 100 by 100 to 200 by 200, and the price stayed the same.
Michelle?
So when you're talking about the cabinet space and the proximity to perhaps a generator, we're considering doing something for our building. We're fairly centrally located, so something with one of the municipal buildings. What kind of generator will include this power?
Yeah, so essentially it's just an AC generator. So we have battery backup that will bridge until the generator comes on board, and we have an automatic transfer switch. So it detects a loss of commercial power. It will flop over when the generator comes online, and then usually the generator will stay until power's back for, you know, anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes. Make sure it, you know, sometimes it bounces, right? And then it fails back over. You know, the other issue I didn't mention, but you mentioned about power. With the fiber optic, the technology we deploy, which is called passive optical networking, there's between our equipment and the end person, there is no power required. It's a completely passive system. So if we're on generator and your business or home has a generator or battery backup, even when the power goes out, you don't lose your internet. So it's not like a cable-based system that has to be regenerated over so often it needs commercial power. It kind of can operate independently of that. We have some customers that live off grid and they use our system and it works fine.
Kevin, where's your current nearest fiber, out of curiosity?
Our current nearest fiber right now, we have fiber in Warren County, and we have fiber, so Warrensburg, and then we have fiber over in Washington County. So like we come down into Easton, that area, I'm trying to visualize in my head, maybe parts of Fort Edward, Fort Ann, that kind of area. And so typically what we use is our commercial providers that provide the backhaul. And so we use commercial providers to kind of feed into the area and go for that. We'll build redundant connections to make sure that we can keep our systems up. It's actually a little bit easier in a more built up place. Some of our rural areas, you know, there is little one road in. So redundancy sometimes is a challenge when it's really rural, but in a built up place like this, it would not be.
Kevin is breaking a record for the most Q&A ever for a presentation ever. I should tell you something.
So you said if businesses have an account with you, you'll provide them Wi-Fi and a free add-on.
So we have a certain level of, they do a certain level of business with us, and we say, okay, we'll give you a free hotspot, and we'll have dedicated bandwidth to that hotspot, so it doesn't impact your business.
Would it cost the village something to have village-wide, if we had a chance with you?
We could figure that out, we would work with you on a price, and we could figure out the best way to do that, but for example, in Saranac Lake, that's exactly what we did. We have 7 municipal facilities that are on our system, and then we provide the youth center, the library, the skate park, the farmer's market, and the beach, I think. We provide Wi-Fi. They've got a beach on the lake.
No additional cost.
And that's just we did that as part of the, okay, if you're gonna provide this level of service with us and they signed a multi-year contract, then we'll provide Wi-Fi into these areas.
And so the Wi-Fi covers, basically the minimum.
So the Wi-Fi covers, depending on the equipment, anywhere from 300 to 600 feet from each location.
That's a
So
lot of area.
it's a pretty good area, and we can do what's called a mesh system. So again, if we decided that, is it Front Street, is that the?
Front Street's the main drag that
So
you're.
if we wanted, every 300 feet, we wanted to put an antenna on Front Street, we could just mesh it, and then it would just kind of be seamless. So there's different ways to look at that.
Chris?
What would be your expected timeline for rollout outside of the footprint for areas surrounding?
Still working on that, I wanna, the one thing I don't wanna do, is I don't wanna overcommit, right? I don't wanna get up here and say, oh, it's gonna be next June, and then next June comes around and everybody. So I don't wanna commit at this point, we really wanna see that we can get this anchor location, we can really get a solid, downtown network going, and then I think from there, we'll look at the opportunity. I think it's good.
Anybody else?
Interesting.
Kevin, you broke all kinds of records. Any final thoughts before you head out?
No, I just appreciate your time. I left some cards over by the hand sanitizer. So if you want to grab one, and we're at slic.com. So we used to be St. Lawrence Internet Connect, and we're no longer just St. Lawrence County. So we're Slick Fiber, and feel free to get a hold of me. And if you don't mind, I do have a 3-hour drive.
Do it.
But you can't.
Get out of here.
Almost. So I'm gonna.
Drive safe, and
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
we'll see you soon.
Take care.
Ray Otten now will be talking to us about some exciting, this is probably more exciting than cable and internet and all that stuff, Ray. FEMA required courses.
Watch your paint dry.
Make sure you're in the picture so people can see your lovely face. I said it.
All right, I passed out packages, everybody have those?
Yes.
I just wanted to touch base on something that I honestly have been trying to get through to the village for several administrations. The first page I have, and I'm gonna have some assistance from the tech wizard on the other end there.
Oh, that's.
She does like Harry Potter, so. Who doesn't? Did you just say?
I read my first Harry Potter book.
Last week you read your first. What?
You started one?
Well, I started with one.
Okay.
Figured it's good stuff.
Okay, now back to FEMA.
All right, this list here is a list of what FEMA considers disasters and emergencies. I'm just gonna touch on a few emergency alerts. Avalanche. Do we get an avalanche here? Probably not. Chemical emergencies could have it at any time. Earthquakes. Anybody realize that there is a fault line that goes through this area?
Yeah.
Right underneath Capitol? Who designed it? Floods. Everything downtown's in a flood area. If you gotta have insurance for it. Hazardous materials incidents. We had one on Bath Street a few years back. Home fires, household chemical emergencies. I guess that's how that Bath Street incident was. Hurricanes, we had a hurricane go through here about 11 years ago. Landslides and debris, maybe not. Nuclear explosion. They have some of that stuff over there in West Milton that could go boom. Pandemic. Anybody ever hear of a pandemic? We have those. Power outages, severe weather, etc. Winter weather, recovery from disaster. The reason I bring all these up is FEMA put together a program probably 15 years ago now of who should take their training. In the event of a disaster, everybody from EMS world, everybody from the fire world, and everybody from the law enforcement world have already been through these courses. And if something happens in this village, if anybody remembers the tornado that went through Mechanical a number of years ago, we thought it was going to come through here. If that happens, and they need to have an emergency operations center in the village of Ballston Spa, which may be the library, okay, depending on what's going on. Do you know who's going to be running that? No, and that's the general answer, okay, is that fire, EMS, and police. Well, we're gonna be sort of busy, okay, so that's not gonna happen. The folks at this table are the ones that are running that. And could I ask, do any of you have NIMS training or ICS training? You do.
training quite a ways. I'm gonna work for Warren County.
Okay, yeah, but you know what it's about.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's actually required of elected officials. Okay, per FEMA. And my story has been, I would love to see something written into village code that within 60 days of taking an office, an elected office in this village, you take this training. Now, the tough part about it is it's all online. It's 4 courses that are online, and it's about total 8 hours by their specs. I mean, it doesn't take 8 hours, believe me, it doesn't take that. So the next slide that I have, if you look at the bottom of that grouping there, I apologize for some of these highlights in here I have. They're not real clear on there, but it says EOC staff, EOC managers, that's Emergency Operations Center. Then what level of NIMS training is required for elected officials? And it goes on in that next paragraph to say that basically those of you that will be in charge need to have this training. And what this training does is it gets everybody on the same page so that we know how things will happen, when they will happen, who's in charge of what. We have a public information officer, we have somebody that's at the scenes. There's all that stuff that has to be coordinated. And I've been through drills, believe me, it's crazy if you don't have people assigned to the right things. And if all of a sudden you need to set up a warning center for the folks at 91 Church Avenue, and that's going to be at the library, who's going to be running that? Okay, these ladies here are probably not going to be doing that. Okay, it's going to be up to the village. Next page.
Isn't the Ballston Area Community Center designated as some kind of?
I have no idea. It's not on any list that I'm aware of. Emergency place to go to.
Yeah, that was a motion, I think, or something. we did
Okay,
about that.
if it is, do they know about it? Does the Colleen, the new person, does she know about it? Yeah.
Right, they
Does
probably-
everybody here know about it?
They probably need updates.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what this is about. This page is just the cover of the National Incident Management System Training Program. Wanted to show that. Go ahead to the next one. I'm not going to go through every, that's just the back of that page. That shows all the different things. That next page, again, breaks down ICS training progression and who should take what. If you look at all incident personnel, it's the first 2 courses, 100 and 700. Incident personnel with leadership responsibilities, you add 800 to 200. And basically that's what we're looking for, is those 4 courses. And again, they're online. You go to the FEMA website, you put in the search box these ICS courses, everything will come up for that and it'll show you how to take it. It's real simple. Yes.
Is this something you have to do every year? Like
No, you take it
sexual
once.
Discrimination, just one.
You take it once. Yeah, it's not as bad as the harassment and all that training. You only got to do this once.
I was just wondering what you were.
Well, you didn't implement it, Derek. It was, it's just it. The next one I have up there is similar. It goes into more about elected officials. You can read through that. So it's all in this packet I gave you. Go ahead to the next one. All right, that is sideways. Okay. This one again is another just a little chart telling you what courses need to be taken by who. The next one, the top portion says NIMS training is required under Homeland Security Presidential Directive HSPD-5 to receive funding federal funding, grants, training, and reimbursement of disaster recovery costs. So if the village officials don't have these courses, we can be not denied any disaster recovery costs. And we all know those are gonna be low, right? It's not gonna be a lot of that. It's gonna be expensive, as you can imagine. And it covers all the gamut. So again, we just need to have these courses. If a disaster happens, we have to know who's in charge, how they're gonna run the EOC, and that they're doing it the correct way. And I think, yeah, on the back of that, the bottom on the left there says governors, county executives, mayors, city managers, agency administrators, and other elected or appointed senior officials who have responsibility, authority, jurisdictional authority, responsibility, or oversight over response and support operations during emergency. That's you guys.
So that would include the certain staff, people, village staff. And
Yeah,
maybe-
probably your department heads.
And, yeah, a DPW and
Well, most of the DPW are in the fire department, believe me, they have the courses,
okay.
but the department heads really should have this too. But again, I'm more concerned about, it starts at the top. If everybody at the top knows what they're doing, then it will roll downhill. Next slide. Just again, a cover page. This is the instructor guide. Guess who used to be an instructor with this? I say used to. And the next one has that highlighted area. Says the purpose of this course is to familiarize senior officials, executives, elected and appointed officials, etc., their role in supporting incident management within the National Incident Management System, which is next. Next page. Local, state, tribal, and territorial jurisdictions are required to adopt NIMS in order to receive federal preparedness grants. So I don't know if this grant that we're going after has anything to do with that or not. I don't think so. Okay. And this is to show this is still going on. The next page, it's the 2022 preparedness grants manual. So it's still a functioning. And the next one, I skipped from page 1 to 215. Again, it just shows who should be taking the training in that. You guys have in your pamphlets possibly some more. The last page that I had is the National Weather Service Storm Ready program. This village used to be a storm ready village. Used to have a sign up at the beginning of that you came into town. I'm seeing a lot of heads going up and down.
I think it's still
Okay.
there.
Are we still a storm ready? Does anybody here know what that entails? What that's about?
Was the siren. It was a special siren, which
Well-
is not active anymore.
The only siren that we have is the one on Union Firehouse. And I remember when we first got that designation, they blared it for about a minute straight.
Yes,
And that's supposed to be the signal that, hey, get your stuff together because something may be happening.
right.
And there's a lot of different things that need to happen. And we were a storm ready community before. I think we should maintain that rating, and whatever we need to do to get that back, if we have lost it, it would be important to me. Okay. Something that's happened over the last week, I have retired from EMS. I am no longer employed.
He's gone.
But no, that's just the opposite. Now I have more time to public safety is always going to be something that I'm interested in. And because my whole family lives in this town, not the village, but in the town, sort of, capital in the town or the village. It's something that we all need to look at. We always think of public safety as, oh, it's just going to happen. It takes all of us thinking about it and working together, and it starts here. It really does. And I just, any help you guys need finding these courses. I mean, you guys are all smart. You can easily find these. I do. So it's going to be easy. Just get through, get your certificates, make sure you know what the system's about. And that way we can move on and know as the citizens that live here and the businesses that are here, that we're going to be okay if something happens. We're going to be able to get through it. And we have the leadership that's going to lead us through this. Okay. It doesn't matter what party you're from or what part of the village you live in or you know, whether you ride a bike or not. It's about safety in this village. And we talk about it all the time with the sidewalks, let's make them safe, let's make them ADA compliant so they can get out of the street, you know, all those kind of things. We want to start more globally, I guess, with being ready for the disaster. Hopefully we'll never have to use it. It's like insurance, you know, you never use it, but it's there when you need it. Okay.
Any questions? Any questions, Donna?
Yes.
I have a question today, which I'm almost reluctant to ask.
Uh-oh.
I worked in a medical center setting for 40+ years. We used that system.
Correct.
We had job descriptions.
Yeah.
That you could pull out and say, this is what you do. We drilled. We
Yeah.
had to learn it and we had to drill. We had to drill internally.
Yeah.
And we had to drill externally with other community organizations.
Yes.
There's absolutely no requirement for a village to have to ever drill. Would you, from your professional opinion, having worked in the emergency medical community, would there be a benefit to the village planning some sort of a village-wide disaster drill?
Absolutely. I have done tabletop drills with the town of Milton. I'm still a member of the emergencies preparedness committee up there. I've done it with the town of Ballston and with the county. Above my desk in binders was the county emergency preparedness plan, the town of Milton plan, the town of Ballston plan. And we don't have one for the village. That's something we need, and some people have told me before, well, we use the county's plan. Well, the county's plan is way too big, and it's not specific to this village. That's something that needs to be developed. It should be readily available, and now with everything being online, I think you can have it readily available. A hard copy doesn't hurt.
Would
And yes,
find a retiree that's sitting here tonight,
Probably
helping
not.
out with that.
As far as drills go, the drills can be very simple. As part of public health, they have drills every year on being ready for pandemics and all that kind of stuff, which is why this site up here went so smoothly when we did have to inoculate hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. Yeah, drills are very beneficial. I was at a drill in the town of Ballston a number of years ago, where it started out as a car accident on Route 67 in front of Curtis Lumber. And then the tractor trailer hit the accident and blew up. Now there's a big fire. Now the lumber yard's on fire. And it just kept going, and the trains were coming by and they caught fire. And, you know, we're sitting there, I'm sitting next to the fire chief, and I go, so when does the meteor hit? It can get out of control, okay? But a good tabletop drill is what you need. Do you need to have the citizens involved? No, but you need to have the citizens aware. There's a difference. You don't have to have them running around and locking the doors and windows because there's a chlorine gas going to come over, you know, to the north end. But you need to have them know if they hear that siren and it goes on for a long time, something's up. You know, whether it's weather related, whatever it is. Yeah, you need to have those drills, and the folks that run the village and the department heads need to be involved in that, just so they're ready to go if it happens. It's like when somebody takes their EMT or their paramedic skills, they prepare for what might happen. You know, you don't always have to know how to birth a baby, but it's a pretty good idea to know the procedure, because chances are you're going to hit that sometime. So, in answer to that question, I guess yes.
Anybody else?
And I think we've got a few other risks in this village. I mean, with the transfer of nuclear material
Absolutely.
and the trains. Do they use those trains for oil?
Oh, most definitely.
And
I've researched that, and yes,
yeah, so
those black cars are not just pretty, you know.
yeah, and just some added potential risks here. No, I agree.
And the railroad will come and do training with you. They'll come down and review all of their procedures and what happens.
Yeah, if we have
Yeah.
neighborhoods that are right next to the track.
Yeah. And you got folks in fire, police, and EMS that are very well versed in this, that can train, come and give short synopses and those kind of things. So It's there. I just want to make everybody aware of it. And plead with you guys to please get this training so you have it. All you need is to know what the system is. That's all it is.
Can I ask one thing? Can
Yeah.
you send us the link? This-
It's in there.
oh, yeah.
Everything's in there. Yeah.
No, I mean, just the, where to get the,
Oh, no, what fun would that be?
I have to do a Google search to find these collections.
FEMA,
Okay.
go to FEMA.com.
Oh,
I'm sorry. It's in there.
Okay.
So I made sure all those were in there.
Ray, Mr. Retiree, thank you for your service and thank you for your service.
I appreciate it.
Old
Nobody
business,
says, please keep me busy.
okay. Old business, I'm gonna hand over to Carla to just give us an update on the code rewrites and amendments, because there's just not much to report, but I'll let her.
Because now Ray just added something else to my list. I have 7 different laws that you're looking to either rewrite entirely or update. And I'll give you a real brief update on that. So the ethics code, I have been provided with it. I'm going through it just to make sure everything is good to go, but you don't get that information. The sidewalk law and the parks law, those are going to be before you by the 9/26 meeting. The sidewalk law is pretty much done, but as I was going through it, I found other things. So I want to make sure we're all set on that. With respect to the vendor law and the special events portion, I did create a permit application that you reviewed, and I know Terry reviewed it too. I don't know if it's been used yet, but it's a little more comprehensive, and it really helps people out on that one. That also talks about having alcohol in the parks and kind of a fear
Which
tent.
will go with the part of the law.
We're done with that, it's implemented, or we're working on it?
No, I'm working on it.
Oh, I thought that you said Thursday.
Yeah, I put together,
We could use it technically because it's administrative, but we're not gonna use it until we get everything else.
the special events form that was created, I was creating it for a different community, and I said, oh, this will work in Ballston Spa as well. So I provided it over to Terry, because this was there's already a special events portion of your law in place, and we all looked at the form and said, this form doesn't work. So it technically could be used because you already have it. It doesn't create anything new, any new obligations, it just explains it a little better. The PDD, I'm sorry. The PDD law, what I've been asked to do is put together a memo of an overlay versus the PDD, which I'm in the process of doing to get to everyone, so that everyone understands. There's a lot of misunderstanding on the differences, the sameness of those. So I offered to put that together. Hoping that's going to be done by the 26th if I survive my 4 trials this week. And just today we were looking at the zoning code for something, and the zoning code with respect to fees to implement, to update the fee schedule. So there's 7 different code rewrites that I'm working on at this point. I would.
One more.
A what?
The smoking law is outdated.
I have smoking saying no direction from board as of HH. So if you want me to move forward on that, I'm happy to do
We're
so.
waiting on state, I think, at that point.
I'll volunteer to draft some bullet points for our consideration.
Okay.
I thought we sort of did that once, but I can do it again. I can do it.
Forgive me, I thought we were dropping it because the state already has
But
law in place.
Carl recommend, our law is outdated, so there's something, so Carl recommends doing something with it, which could be just getting rid of
Repeal
it,
and point to the state.
but doing
Yeah.
something to make it aligned with.
Okay.
Yeah, not keeping an out-of-date law on the books.
Certainly, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Plus, we could talk about it later, but yeah, it's things that could be tweaked.
The best methodology to handle how to get rid of the existing law and point to the state's law, that's what we are comfortable with ultimately.
And
Yeah, the state law does not include vaping, so that's one thing.
I think it might actually, the definition's weird, you gotta track it back, so we can figure that out as part
Well,
of
I've
it.
been talking to the smoking, I forget what they're called, but they're up in Adirondack Health Institute, and they're funded by the state to promote and smoking things, and they say it's not included, vaping is not included.
We'll take a look.
That's something to think for us to discuss.
So ultimately, they're all in various stages of revision and or preparation. And my goal is, as I indicated, to have them all to you in the next 2 weeks.
In the fairness of full disclosure, the zoning, what she's talking about is somebody had come in for an interpretation from the zoning board, which we allow. And the application, for some reason, has a $500 fee for an interpretation only, not even for a variance. That's an additional fee. If you need one, the fee schedule and the code do not have this fee, and we can't establish where it came from, and it is not in line with the cost that any other municipality charges for such a thing. So currently, we believe that there is $0, and we were probably going to need to fix the fee schedule in the meantime to handle that. But she also wants to make sure we even have an authority to charge anything for that interpretation. So that's why we won't do it tonight until she takes a closer look at it.
And I did, and I know you'll be shocked, but there's a little difference in your law that there is authority to do an area variance, no authority to do a use variance, no authority to do an interpretation, authority to do building permit
For fees, you're talking.
for fees, yeah.
Mark, can you do your surprise look for me? There you go, thank you.
So for the parks law, you're gonna talk about what's allowed or not allowed, what's permissible or not permissible.
Right, what we had kind of put together earlier at the beginning, I'm just gonna take and codify that and provide it to everybody, obviously provide it to you all.
One thing I forwarded to you from the Parks and Tree Board was a tree planting policy.
Yep.
You want to put that in?
I have that on here as well, but I had it as something separate, not under the sidewalk law.
For the parks. Do
Right, sorry, sidewalk, smoking.
you want it under parks law?
No, I,
I don't think it belongs to me, based on what you're talking about going, right?
No, these are.
these are
It is
private
solely
people.
parks.
Is
It is only parks.
but is it solely parks or is it beyond parks?
No, it's in the.
This one policy was about parks.
Parks
and
only, okay.
People planting trees. and
Right,
I wasn't sure if it was or
It's
wasn't.
the question, do you need something in code or as, sometimes it's a policy?
Right, I have it on here, my list says tree question, private person planting on public property. But I can look to see whether we put it into the code or not. I just had it as a question.
The parks tree, whatever. Wouldn't it just go through parks? If they're gonna.
Well, they want
seek
a
the-
policy, and for them, that policy, they need to send it to us and Carla.
I don't know that we need law over it, I guess.
don't know.
So it may not be
Right.
the code, but it may become an official village policy.
Sure, yeah, I just don't know. I was just.
That's why I
clarifying.
I don't know.
Maybe it
I
is.
don't know.
It's not right now. It's not right now.
No, I know, I'm saying, just to keep track of that, it's a thing to consider, whether it needs to be part of the parks law or just.
My information is it doesn't, I don't know, that's my thought, but anyway.
What would let Carla give us her legal?
Sure.
It says estimated completion date in 2025 at this page.
There's like 31 things.
Only 31. What are you, Baskin Robbins? Okay, let's stay focused here if we can with crosswalk safety and new business and Sean Raymond.
Just one thing,
Or not.
sorry, for old minutes, we're still waiting on the August 8th minutes. Just so you know.
Okay, Sean Raymond.
So, as you guys probably have noticed in town, the DPW has been painting crosswalks, ladder style. And as part of that, I recommended that we follow the New York State DOT and Governor Safety's Traffic Committee guidance and standards in their pedestrian safety action plan. So beyond just doing the AD ramps and the painted crosswalks, that includes specific sign packages at each location to increase awareness and improve visibility of those crosswalks. But obviously, we hadn't budgeted for that when we initially, I think it was around 4,000 that we had set aside for crosswalk painting, something like that.
I think it was give or take, yeah.
Yeah,
We wanted to go thick on paint, so we're in with the
Yeah.
ladders.
So, I reached out to Jeff to find out kind of a cost estimate regarding this and to somehow budget for these as well. And So basically what we came up with, what Jeff came up with is a typical sign that would go on a crosswalk that, let's say, is a standalone crosswalk, isn't associated with other ones at a intersection, would, you know, be the cost of about $174 each. And if they have to, you know, if they're double-sided, that goes up to about $330 each. I had him basically go through the list that he was given to update the crosswalk, paint them, put in ADA ramps. And the High Boulevard area, which includes all those new crosswalks, is going to be about $2,200 in signs to sign that according to the PSAP standards. And then Eastern and Grove Street would be about 1,000.
I just want to interrupt you to let people know that Chapman Street will be getting crosswalks. That was something that they left for the end of it because of all the other stuff they were doing, and they had to fix a couple of things so to make them capable of being there. So anybody concerned about Chapman Street not having the crosswalks on High, it's coming.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. And Chapman Street and Heritage, that's about another $1,000 in sign package. So that all told together for that list right now is in $4,500 range. So obviously that would mean we would have to find additional funds to budget for that. So I wanted to bring that to the board to see, get their thoughts.
Well, here's my view. We are probably not going to be on the hook for a total of $15,000 for the crosswalk, at least in the next year, in this budget year. We could assign some of that funding to go over there now, because it's not going to cost $15,000 to make ADA ramping. If we choose to go that route, that's for sure. And it seems like the state has the intent to put in the striping and the signage, and it seems like DPW wants nothing to do with doing that because they've got enough things right now on their plate. So let the state do that, and we'll pay for the signage that way, I think.
That seems like a reasonable course of action.
And there are some additional crosswalks. You know, since the goal is to target the schools first, and we've partially done that for the Hyde area where most of the pedestrian traffic is, and Chapman would be an important one. I think eventually either end of Hyde is also important because people use Hyde to get down to the school.
Yeah.
Because small place, little, you know.
Yeah, I'd also like to think of us,
And then
consider
the other
this
schools.
village. Let's do this planfully throughout the village. You know, we're focusing a lot on Hyde, but that's in a very small section of the village. So for example, there's 3 crosswalks on Ballston Ave. Of course, there was a student hit by a car last year on Ballston Ave. So there's Garrett Road, which needs new stripes. They're on a stop sign, so that means that they don't need the pedestrian cross, right?
Jennifer had reached out to, who was it, Mr. Hollywood ultimately, because Joe Whalen was out, and they said that Garrett is going to be their crosswalk to paint, correct?
They're on it.
Yep.
I'm done.
Town of Ballston, gonna do it?
We were a little bit confused on the lines. but-
I'm glad about that because I don't know why they didn't do it when they did Thomas 30 feet away, but so I assume they weren't gonna do Garrett, so I'm glad they're doing Garrett. So
We'll
the,
follow up to make sure that stays on.
But to follow up on that, because this initiative with being essentially school centric. I also think, I don't know if it's in the plans yet, but a crossing of Ballston Ave at McMaster.
yes.
And
That's what I
also
was gonna say.
McMaster. Yeah.
So there's
Those obviously would be ones that should be included.
So there are 2 crosswalks now, but they need restriping, and there's a stop sign across McMaster, so I guess it doesn't have a
So it
sign.
would only be the one across Ballston.
And they both have ramps, so they don't need that, but across Ballston, they definitely need a sign, and I would advocate to put one of the signs that go in the middle of the road as a temporary thing in Ballston Ave.
I think we may have placed those, well, technically, we place them in some format, I think, in most locations.
Right, well, generally those signs work best in areas where you've got multiple crosswalks and on what would be considered the through thoroughfare as opposed to the minor side street. A lot of times if they get placed on the stem of the T, they just get knocked down because trucks can't make the turns. And they run over. And so they're better on the through where it's predominantly through movements so that they won't get damaged.
I actually tested in person the one on Grove and started into the, and one car just went right through, but the next two cars coming from either direction stopped and allowed me to go across. And I did observe slow down. So I think those middle of the road.
Can we get one of those over in Ballston?
We can work that. So I think to sort of get us into a position here, number one, why don't we work with Julia to figure out exactly how to rearrange the money for the signage that you spotted with Jeff? Now that we know the answer with the crosswalk. Number two, why don't you make a list of the things that you're talking about here so that we can then assess those and also timing, because again, every additional thing you're suggesting here is going to push us into a problem with DPW. So a lot of it's going to be next year anyway.
That's why I want to absolutely
Yeah.
minimize any additions
Yeah,
Right,
because they're already at it.
but.
we can start to plan though on that.
Right, well, that was the other thing to say, if, at the pleasure of the board, if you'd like, Liz did the legwork to identify all the crosswalks. I could, based on my expertise, I could go through and create a phased approach, maybe in 2 or 3 phases that, based on priority, I could set up a plan.
Why don't you, me and Jeff work with that basically over the next couple of weeks if you get some time. This could be a couple tough weeks because of forward. But
Well, yeah,
over the next month, let's get
over the next couple of years.
Yeah, over years. Well, I'm talking about the
But the more immediate ones, yeah.
plan for
This fall, but I think it would be worth looking at the north end.
let's work together with Jeff.
Right, we talked about doing all school stuff in the fall, including Ballston Ave potentially, and then other parts of the village, maybe in the.
Yeah, and it's gotta be, there's certain priorities you would set. Like, first of all, is it high speed? Is it high volume? Is it high pedestrian volume? You consider all those factors and then can make a priority list based on those factors.
So someday when you can be in the village, and we can call a meeting, you, me, him, and you can do some of the advanced legwork on ideas with it. We could go through it all and then come back to the board with it. That sounds okay. Perfect. Thank you.
It sounds like there's strikes being made on Hamilton and other areas beyond the schools.
Was that for St. Mary's?
I believe realistically that was already getting done. I saw the principal's email, obviously, they talked about it, about where's my password. So that stuff was, I think, already going to be redone because they were doing a full redo as normal anyway. So the stuff that we got from Ben's email, I think was all pretty much covered, except for a couple of things randomly that Jennifer was spotting. She gave me some comments as to what she knows was being handled, what's not. So if we want offline, we can take another look at that with you. So that you're
So I'm just curious what, because we don't know exactly what the plan is currently beyond the High Street side. When we saw those other strikes, I know Ballston has a high need area, so that's why. Not just because I live on it.
Okay. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Trustee Fondanza to talk about New York Forward and lead into the public comment portion of our program. And remember, if you're on Zoom, this would be a great time for you to raise your hand if you have comments particular to New York Forward and the downtown central business district. I'll let her explain a little bit here.
For those that might not know about New York Forward, I'm going to give some background. The village, we submitted a letter of intent to indicate to the New York State that we were interested in applying to New York Forward. What that is a smaller scale version of downtown revitalization program, which basically gives targeted investments to small downtowns, like a small portion of the downtown, to help spur improvements to buildings, support small businesses, just really to give some fresh life into downtown communities throughout the state. We would be applying through the Capital Region Economic Development Council, Regional Economic Development Council. And, you know, potentially, if we were selected, Ballston could receive 2.25 million or 4.5 million to again invest in a targeted area of our downtown. Overall, the planning process is like breakneck speed. It's about a month, which very grateful for the team that's really given up a lot of their time to work on this. They are doing research, information gathering, developing ideas, meeting with each other, talking to other people. It's a diverse group of people, from residents, property owners, small business community members, people from education, nonprofits, and real estate. So just to give a thanks to the team, I did want to mention each of them. Thank you to Donna Derdaris, Kelly, Delaney Elliott, Carol Johnson, Karen Martell, Rory O'Connor, Tina Mangino, Andy Mannion, Natalie Martinez, Ray Otten, and Dana Warmer. Some are here today. Thank you for being in our meeting. Also on so they've been broken out into kind of focus groups. They're kind of taking their expertise or experience to talk about investments in that area, past and future. They're looking at what's been done and what they think can be done. And that's not just that team, but everybody. They're looking at job growth and quality of life, and they're responding to a set of questions and kind of guiding paragraphs within this guidebook that I've been reading. It's been like my Bible for the last few weeks or so. So they're taking a look at that and kind of giving the information how the village could answer those questions to New York State. The mayor and I held meetings with the state appointed application consultant, Kimberly Baptiste. She's vice president of the Northeast Building from Bergen. And we also met with Todd Shimkus from the Saratoga County Chamber of Commerce. They both gave us some guidance, namely keep our focus zone very condensed and walkable. I also ran into a economic development planner, and she had said that excellent plans have been denied because the zone was too big. So as much as we would love to expand, in my opinion, everywhere, we really are trying to keep it down to a small area. And actually, I did a rough measurement online. It's about 30 acres, and if you kind of stick to the main roads, it's on 1 mile, under 1 mile walking. So we think that's pretty dense. We also, were informed, get something online right away, talk to the public as soon as possible. So, we got a website landing page, got a press release out, communications to the public through the email system. Thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer was awesome and very helpful to that effort. So very much appreciated. And, I think that's been moving forward. So it's pretty easy to find that website landing page. If you go to the main page of the village website, very at the very bottom in the news section, you'll see New York Forward with a map. And you click on that, and then it has the link to that specific landing page. We also made a direct link to the questionnaire that we put out there. I made a shorter version to make it easier for people. It's tinyurl.com/bspotforward. Make life easy. And we've got the word out there through earned media. Channel 10 covered it. Also, the Gazette reported on it. The library, thank you, Andy, for getting information and questionnaires to the library. For those patrons, thank you to the VSBPA for letting us be at the Ice Cream Social and having the opportunity to talk with residents. As people had great questions and great responses to the questionnaire. Our other small businesses have hung signs and more signs. Actually, this signage, make it easy, QR codes. I finally learned how to use QR codes myself. But if anybody wants to take these, please, I would love for you to help get that out there. we had stuff on our village Facebook page, and there's just generally been a lot of discussion in the community, a lot of word of mouth. So that's really been wonderful. In the short amount of time that we've been allotted, we already have 120 responses between online and paper, with many additional personal interactions. I know Andy had talked to people. I know Natalia went into a couple small businesses and talked to actual patrons. And I'm sure everybody that is on that committee, there are people that like to talk to, you know, community residents, and Adana and Dana are constantly out. So, you know, there's been a lot of effort. So one of the things we want to do tonight specifically for the public is to extend a listening opportunity here at this meeting. If you are unsure what we're talking about, there are some of the cards over there, the questionnaires on the back. Ray is a great assistant tonight.
Dana White is gonna be on the job.
On the back is a map. If you haven't seen the map yet, that's the area that we're talking about. And actually on that card is some good guiding questions. I know that Frank will be opening it up to the public, but grab one if you want, just for some context if you don't know what we are talking about. Real quick to answer a question that came from the board through email. The committee, I went back to the committee with your question, Sean, about the 13th. And the committee at this point is working really hard, but they just don't see that as feasible to give you a finished product. But what they would like to do, and Dana and Ray had offered to help coordinate this, to meet with the board members if they wanted to have some personal discussions with any of the board members. So they're here tonight and you guys can talk to them, but love to hear what the public has to say mostly.
So generally, the ideas here are to have you discuss anything that you find favorable about the downtown that you would like to see more concentration on, things that are problematic with the downtown currently that could be fixed, or just general views of the downtown central business district area that's been defined. There's a lot of money at stake that can be won here, but most of all, as I said, I think because that article quoted me on this, and I mean it. Even if we don't win this grant, realistically, we're learning a lot about ourselves as a village, as to where our deficiencies are, where our strengths are, and it's going to make us a better place to live ultimately in terms of where we focus things ultimately here. So keep that in mind. Don't pull punches. If you think something's really bad, tell us, and I will tell you. We've heard loud and clear. Sidewalks, parking are two of the things that I've seen as a preview everywhere. So you can say that by all means here, but that's been probably one of the, or two of the largest topics ultimately that we've seen in some of the surveys, just on a quick review of those. Anybody in the house?
I just have a question clarification, sorry. So this grant requires at least one public forum. And is this is the public forum?
Yes, so we discussed this with the state. They had indicated to us that because there's some overlap with what we're doing with the steering committee, that that a lot of what we're doing is extra, and we definitely want to make sure we have something in a meeting format, but we've done above and beyond, I think, what the state is requiring us to do.
But this is the meeting that is required.
Well, as far as we're concerned, the visioning meeting, it had a lot of downtown components as well. So that combined with this is going to be 1+ as far as we're concerned. We will obviously mention this as one, but we will also be pointing to the other one as well, because it did focus on downtown specific.
So there's going to be a substantial part of this meeting, this board meeting, should a substantial amount of time should be taken up by this New York Forward, because it's not obvious from the agenda, but it's actually a significant piece of what we're doing tonight. Is this meeting?
But sure, well, we got a lot of wonderful input so far, so, but again, want to keep this positive and hear from the public.
Be curious as to how many people here and also on Zoom have already filled out your questionnaire.
I think a decent number from what I remember, just perusing, yeah.
Okay. Just wondering.
Michelle, could you had shared something with me that I had alluded to earlier, but I think it's appropriate, or Kyle for that matter, just to.
Now I'm in voice.
But
I don't know. Mouthpiece.
again, just for the norm here, as any public comment session, please give me name and address,
Do I need to
et
be
cetera.
visible?
If you'd like to, come on up, don't worry about that.
Carol Beals, can you hear me?
There you
Can you
go,
hear me now?
there you go.
Michelle Bechard, 14 Bath Street.
Step into the camera if you come all that way, come on, there you go.
Co-owner of Waverly Square Antiques, which is 19 Low Street. This has been a very quickly formulating thing, and we're very busy, which is good. So I wasn't on top of it until I saw the map in the Gazette article last week and saw that we are cut out of it. Augie's, us, Haven Beauty, the Living Well, and our tenant on the side, which is I can never remember him, New Life, Uniques. Huggies and us alone, we've been very, very fortunate in our success. We bring a lot of money to the town in taxes and stuff. We got cut out of it by a block and a half, 2 streets. Why? And yet, no offense, but Angelica is in there. That's on the market for a couple million, 4.5. Whoever buys that's gonna probably have all sorts of means. We got beautiful kudos. We've been constantly complimented on our work on our sidewalks and our paving. And that did not come cheaply to us, and we are not rolling in it. We did it to, yes, improve our business, but to improve the way that it looks downtown. You've been so generous in your compliments to us, but then we get cut out of any option of some grant money further down that will continue to enable us to beautify what we consider a major part of the south end of this town. And I really was dumbstruck that, and I understand there are parameters that you had to go by, but I'd like to understand what they were. And kind of, again, I'm gonna go after the Angelica. And again, we came into, that was given a whole study of several months. Nothing came of it. And they're on the far end of town. We're right here, and we get cut out of the help that we'd like to do to continue to make us be an integral and attractive part of continuing to make the village more attractive. So that was my frustration. I let it out to Mayor. He was very kind and said, oh, we're having a meeting. So here I am. So I'd love to understand, and if there's any way that, and I don't know the Augie's people really, I know of them. We're all busy. I'm not speaking for them, but I'm thinking they're probably a little wondering as well. So that's all I got.
So Bernadette and I talked, because I told her, I was actually with her when the first message came through, we were talking about it. And then I know Andy has been a proponent on the library that we're sitting in right now, as well, having that issue. And I believe that there's no real objection to pulling it up the hill, as they say, to the south, to make sure that we incorporate that fully. The accident that occurred here was this. Originally, it was concentrated on Front Street down to Milton Avenue, and then widened from there basically by whatever the next natural block was when it went southward, when the map was made, and then came down the hill in response to some of the discussion we had from the last meeting. So it was unintentional, realistically, that happened, and I don't see any reason not to. Go ahead.
And then the nice thing about community input is we are learning a lot, and that being one of them. Like, for me, and I think, of course, it wasn't intentional, but when you measure it out, it's only like 300 additional feet south on that one street. And I think, I don't know, 5 acres or something like that. So it's not, I don't think it'll impact our size, and when New York will say, oh my gosh, that's so big. So
Well, I'm sure
absolutely.
if you're constrained to a really particular size, and I would hate to think that my saying we're not in, and that would eliminate someone else somewhere else.
Which also,
Was all then. No, so that's the
Cut
unique.
through.
No, it's included. It always was. that's the unique thing about this grant and DRI even, it's like, New York's like, hey, do a thing. We'll see if we like it, you know, and that's anybody we've talked to. I ran into, I can't think of her name offhand, but a woman that did economic development stuff, placemaking sort of projects in Schenectady, and now she works in Bloggersville. She also said there's a lot of vagueness and a lot of opportunity for us to learn, and this is really an opportunity for us to learn. But no, I'd rather include you, and I think our board, our committee would rather include you than not, and Andy Library, of course.
Just one more thing, Frank, was, you know, he said that it would be helpful to the process to kind of say how much money or something in the vein of what we've laid out to improve,
Yes,
because it shows the state that we are all trying to do this for.
we're investing in
Yeah,
ourselves. Yep.
Yeah, that,
help you with that.
so I wrote a whole bunch of words, and I thought maybe I don't read all the words today, but that is one thing that has been emphasized to us a lot. What New York wants to see is that whatever investment they give us leverages increase more investment. And so showing a history, which we've seen, I mean, gosh, my family opened their business in 2000, right? And to me, I kind of remember that being the first wave. It probably wasn't, but it's, you know, teenager, that's what I remember. And, you know, it was the Morris Calvies that worked on the Lincoln building. It was the, you know, Tina and Gina on her property. There was a bit of investment. And then over the 2000s, I don't even know what you consider the next wave, but we have a history of that. What we are trying to report specifically, I think the application will talk about that history, but I think what would be ideal is to show within the last 5 years, you know, that's what the committee has been focusing on, because that's just a lot to report otherwise. But yeah, so if you yourself or any of the other businesses that you communicate with, like, please get us that information. I know, like, chatted with Ella Dillon, she shot me some information, you know, so, you know, we'll make sure that those teams have that and can be compiled.
So this is a great example of how the entire board should be involved in the conversation and decision-making, because this project actually has major implications for this village for years in many different aspects that will involve this village board, whether it's policy, partnerships with private entities and things like that. So when someone asks for this piece to be expanded, I think we would appreciate as a board to be included in that conversation. It's not just you and Frank, but it's a board conversation, and it hasn't happened.
What's missing
So,
is that the committee makes that decision. That committee, and then something ultimately is presented.
Well, that's what we'll talk about, is what our role is, because we have had no role, but we'd like a role. We want a role, and we're gonna have a role of some kind.
Yeah, well, that's okay. Mr. Trustee Baskin, that's why, you know, like I said, Dana and Ray are happily and going to reach out to each of you to, you know, have that conversation. They're the committee that's making the recommendation.
Excuse me, the committee makes recommendations. Committees
Yes.
are advisory, the board makes the final.
Yes, they
decision.
do, but you don't have a final product with which to make a final decision. So what the committee is gonna do, hold on, what the committee is gonna do, let's keep this positive. This is a positive thing for our community, and this sort of bickering, I understand you're upset, but let's just keep it focused on staying positive and working together with what we have now.
I would like to
So-
work together.
Yeah, that's fine. And what I'm trying to say, though, is that our committee, this committee has offered, Andy has offered, Tina Mangino has offered, Ray has offered, Dana has offered. There's a number of people that said, sure, we'd like to sit down with you guys. Ultimately, they're gonna be the ones providing the final recommendations. A document will be drafted with which then we will vote on as a board. I don't know why you can't rely on this committee. I just don't quite
I'd be
understand it.
interested, and we can talk about it under your motion too, but a special meeting with this
The
board.
motion's gonna be withdrawn, and a special meeting is gonna be called for the 21st, 2 p.m. by.
Oh, you've already anticipated my request.
Well, it was the path of least resistance, and also acknowledge some of the things, one second, Michelle, I will get to you. Some of the things that the committee is given feedback on, timing, et cetera. So that will be withdrawn, and the 21st at 2 p.m. Via Zoom, because we still have the ability to do, I was gonna say it later, but I'll officially state it later, so that we have. Michelle? Okay, let me get, Michelle's gonna wave in up there.
I didn't contact anyone in particular to avoid anyone in particular. When I saw the map in the Gazette, I was frosted and I reached out to the quickest one possible. And quite honestly, it makes sense.
I'm the quickest one possible.
No, but accessible and the path of least resistance, because I was ticked that my business was being omitted. It was not a point to omit anyone. And it
we're not
was a
blaming
very
you.
casual thing, and I just want you to know that that was not my intention. It was, I was frosted. I went to the easiest and quickest way that I could. And if they didn't share it with you, it honestly wasn't that long ago. And he did inform me that this meeting tonight was going to be used to discuss this stuff. And so it was more of a heads up that I had no intention of avoiding discussing with anyone. So I would
This is
hate to
not
have
about you. Not
my
about you.
issue be used to blow this up. That's.
No, your issue is not
Okay.
being used for this,
Okay.
and I understand, and much of this New York Forward program, I also saw for the first time in the Gazette, and I think that's wrong. For a board member to find out about what's going to be proposed by the village by reading it in the newspaper.
All I did, and Jennifer saw my press release, it was very generic, announcing who was on the committee, announcing that we were gonna have a questionnaire and that there would be a web page. The Gazette, I can't control the Gazette, but ultimately what the communications I put out was very, very generic.
That's fine. We just want more internal communication.
I mean, I think this is just a matter of being kept in the loop, right? That, I think that's all it is.
Right.
And if a board's gonna have to approve it, it should be kept in the loop every step of the way. And I know that this is very time constrained and it's easy to make certain oversights, so there isn't anything that anybody believes is, premeditated. I think it's just a matter of, that is the process. That is the democratic process.
So this is why I said to Michelle, come to the meeting and please tell the entirety your concerns, because I knew that it was something that should be heard. And I know Andy has had the same concerns as well about the library, et cetera. Andy, would you like to speak to it?
Sure,
Thank you.
I have comments written because I'm not particularly good at public speaking, so.
You do well every time I see you. Come on.
Not to this large of a group. I'm Andy Mannion. I am currently serving and love it as president of the library board, where we are sitting right now, the most publicly used space here in Ballston Spa. It's a vital community space and it's a gathering space used by all ages for various reasons, including borrowing books and other materials, attending youth and adult programs, doing local historical research, using available technology here, including computers, internet, copy, fax machines, tutoring sessions, holding and attending various meetings and workshops all the time. This building is used. And if you look around you, you can tell that it's probably needs some updates. It's pretty worn, well loved, but pretty worn. And it's a great equalizer and it's an important part of our community. The library board, the director and staff have been working these last 2 years on gaining public input concerning the future of the library. And over that time, we have, with public input, developed a community plan of service with goals to address future library needs. And we've retained the services of a local architectural firm to provide us with a detailed master plan. The master plan will help move the library move forward in a cohesive and logical way with much needed renovations. So this project, the library renovation project, is very worthy and I think should be considered for inclusion in some way in the New York Forward grant. And I just wanted to say the library checks off several important goals highlighted in the New York Forward grant and could be used by the village as one of an anchor project to help obtain funds for the village. And now I want to speak a bit about process. And I want to say that not every process is smooth, and I get that. And we all make missteps, right? But the missteps don't need to derail the process. And I recognize that, missteps should be recognized and remedied. And as a village resident for 25 years, believe it or not, I can't. I believe the public expects our mayor and our trustees to compromise and to work together and to get things done. Each board member here, each trustee has volunteered in various capacities and worked very hard for this village. And I know you have a wealth of experience. Some of you guys have written grants. All of you guys have done so many volunteer things. You have a breadth of experience, and your input and understanding of the various issues concerning the village will only help move the grant process forward. And so it's my hope that the mayor and all of the trustees as our elected representatives work together to move the grant forward. It's the right thing. So thank you for listening to me and for tolerating my.
Just to further one thing too, as I said about asking Michelle to come here, I also asked Kevin Lynch, who we heard from earlier, when he sat down with me and his team. I was like, look, that sounds wonderful as a possible anchor type project as well from the information technology end of it. But you need to come and talk to everybody about this to give them the information, because I was not going to be the sole conduit. I mentioned it to the Gazette because I get put on a spot to talk about projects. I also wanted to see what the community response would be with the idea of something like that, and it's been nothing but extraordinarily favorable generally. And so it's something that having him come here, I saw as very valuable, and I think our questions and answers proved that tonight. So
Well, this is great, and I'm so happy that we are finally part of the conversation, and thank you, and I would fully support having that library be part of this project. So one thing that I objected to with the response to Michelle is like me and Frank talked about it and we decided it's a good, so I like the idea that we're all part of this moving forward together. So thank you. And I definitely would like the library, and definitely like Michelle and
I appreciate that. I do want to let you know that it's not just in the Frank. My main role with that committee is to help facilitate what they need. Do they need space to meet? Do they have? I'm trying to just get them information. Like I blast them with emails, not of what I want, but here's what New York's looking for. So it's not me and Frank deciding. We certainly don't want to leave you out. So just to make that 100%.
Okay, one thing that'd be helpful is let us know when the committee
meets. Let me finish. So the continued narrative that we're purposely leaving you out is not productive or helpful, and quite frankly, just frustrating, because this group's working hard and I'm working hard to help them get them the information they need. So from now on, can we just move forward? No pun.
My point was to share how we feel. The three of us feel like we have had no involvement with this grant. So we are asking to be more involved. That's the request.
Okay.
And part of that would be, maybe we could sit in on committee meetings.
Well, they said they would meet with you, and I said that.
No,
three
committee as a whole.
times today.
As a whole, when's the next
only
committee meeting?
only two of you can at a time. Don't forget, because it's a public meeting or a public vote. It's law around.
One recommendation that grant committees should be meeting with
They
the open
have.
meeting law.
Liz, there's no way to accomplish that with the notice that's required. There's just no way to do it in this circumstance. There's no way. Either you want to apply for this grant or you don't, and you have to, as Andy said, compromise to the realities of what this grant is forcing us to do here with the time frame. Realistically, look, we know that it's Governor Hochul probably trying to make sure re-election occurs, that putting money out there and doing it in a very tight time frame before the election. That's great, and we're going to meet those deadlines ultimately as a result of it, because it's something that we think fits our village. But the reality is, it's an extremely tight timeline. Judy Esposito.
I don't have anything written up because I wasn't expecting to speak.
Okay, but step forward so everybody can see you too.
Judy Esposito, 48 Chapman Street. So I tried going online and looking up to see what New York Forward was about. I did do the survey.
But as of communication, no one has contacted me for information. Chairperson of Friends of Wiswall Park, and we've done a lot of work in Wiswall Park, and all you have volunteered in Wiswall Park, and we have meetings every 2 weeks, and we've gathered a lot of information from village residents. We've talked to all the businesses. We've put out a survey, and we could make that available to you as additional information and what people want in Wiswall Park. So I think, we need to increase the communication also with other, organizations in the village. This is public comment number one?
This is not public comment number one. This
Okay.
is strictly from your board.
Okay.
I just wanted to state, though, also that realistically, from conversations with other members of your committee, the first step is getting a master plan put together for Wiswall Park, which is going to take a chunk of money to perform, because as we know, there's a time frame that we're not going to have, because we're going to be tearing up Front Street, we're going to be looking at the underground, et cetera, and so there's no good prerogative right now to do it in the next 10 months, 12 months. And so the master plan of it will cost money and will go a long way to improve Wiswall Park in a way that's more functional than some of the other things that we've seen over time. So that hasn't been
We're also
lost.
looking into grants and becoming a 501c3. So, if Wiswall Park's going to be included in this project, then
I got it. I do have to
which
say,
direction do we go in?
I do have to say one
Continue.
thing, Judy, though, and I've said it consistently to you. Don't forget, you are a club, not a committee of the village, and so we have to trust a park and tree board before we would trust the Friends of Wiswall with respect to this type of issue. And so that's the weird divide here on this whole thing. And the same goes with others that are in a similar position. While we value the information, by all means, if you've got something you want us to know about, please give us the information. We're happy to have it, but we also have to be cognizant of who ultimately the board entrusts ultimately.
Well, I absolutely agree with Judy. She has a wealth of information on Wiswall Park, and if Wiswall Park is part of this grant, somebody should be talking to Judy. There is a survey that was done, there's planning that's been done, and why wouldn't you talk to Judy about that?
I think I just said that,
I think,
yes.
I agree that somebody should talk to her. and
Well,
get some-
I have a basic question, and I read the whole application, and frankly, I've got a fair amount of grant writing experience.
We know this, go ahead.
Are you done? Can I finish? Which includes over $100 million in capital grants, which this is essentially. And have I written grants for the village as well? And, I'm happy to help and review, et cetera, but somehow I feel like
To review would mean that we would have a product to be reviewed
Yeah,
at this point.
that's-
We're
that's
not
my-
there yet.
my point is, you are 2 weeks to the deadline. The first question is, their first requirement is the business statement. Have you completed that?
We will be able to, by the time, before
By
the
which-
time we need to have it approved. There's 2 people on there that are looking to speak.
Okay, well, my second question is, you've been engaged in public, that is the transformative projects. I think we need to see that earlier than the 21st, 2 days before the deadline. And feel comfortable that those are the projects that we as a village, the whole board, all 5 of us feel are the right projects to put into this grant. The details and stuff, so what I'm proposing later on in a motion is that by no later than Friday, you give us at least a list of which projects are going into this grant. Because,
Liz, did anybody ever require you to do that with any of your grants that went before the
Yes.
village? Who and when?
no.
No, wait, yes or no?
I had to describe the grant process well before, 2 weeks before, and
The grant process is written in the application itself. I'm talking about the
I
substantive items.
identified the grant and the project well ahead of the deadline. And then there
Did you
was
have one?
sufficient,
1 month. I'm genuinely curious.
are you finished?
No, I had a sincere question. Was it 1 month work period? I mean, the turnaround?
Oh, some of these grants were very quick turnaround.
I
Can
can,
I finish?
sure.
So for the board who is now involved, who has not been privy to what the group has been discussing, I think to be reasonable to identify which projects you are going into this grant. And then if you're, you want to do a workshop, but we have to have enough time to look at the grant, and because we have a fiduciary responsibility to this village.
Community before thyself was, community before thyself.
What do you mean?
I mean that essentially, at the end of the day, you want to perfect the projects, which technically we're gonna have a planning group assigned to us for free if we win it. That will help finalize where we do aim it if we're awarded it. As if you've read the grant package, application package, you know this. You're not looking for perfection in this, they're looking for a couple anchor projects with other ideas of projects to go along with it.
That's what I'm asking for.
So,
What
excuse
are
me
you-
now,
what
you
are
want
the
to be,
projects?
excuse me, I'm talking, thank you. So with all due respect, what you're saying is basically, I want, and you're not thinking about the fact that the 10 people that are working on this hard hours to identify specifics that are going to answer your questions ultimately as to what we need most. We're trying to let this be a public facing project with respect to surveys, forums, the committee going out and about, etc. We're happy to give you the survey, or we talked to Bernadette about that, giving all the survey results to the board, and have fun, sort through it all, because it's a lot and it's great. I'm thrilled that we have that response. But you're going to see that your notion of what the projects are probably going to be something that you might not have assumed just walking into
That's
this.
what I'm asking.
So
I'm
if
saying,
by all
what
means,
are
we're
the
going to give you,
projects?
we're going to give you the information that's helping us determine whether our initial impressions on this were right or not. We're not there yet because we are doing what the application asks us to do, sorting through this.
What I would
So I'm just gonna jump in here. So as elected officials, when we approve something, whatever it is for the village, we represent the people who voted us in. And we wouldn't be doing our due diligence if we didn't review the documents we approve, or the application, or the scope of work. So, and if we're going to review and potentially provide comments, we also need a little bit of time to do that too. I guess our thoughts are, is there anything that we can be given, including the anchor projects or the rough scope of the potential work or proposed work? The application as is, do you have minutes from your meetings? Could you share with those? I think it's that type of material, if we can review, at least we can get a sense of where you're at before we sit down at some point to approve it.
I agree. What I would suggest is maybe you wrap up your public comment committee work this week, and then the village board.
What do you mean by the public comment committee work? That's
All
two
this,
different
all
things.
the committee meetings and input and the survey, wrap it up by the end of this week, this weekend. And then next week, we look at everything that happens and we finalize it as a board. That's what I would suggest.
I mean, yeah, somebody could get us even a rough draft, so to speak, maybe by Friday.
For example, one thing I could do to help, for example, if the surveys aren't summarized, if you want to send me the 100 whatever survey results, questionnaire results, I'll volunteer to summarize those. Like if you don't have time to do that, like I could do that. That could be something that other people help with. And I could say I'd do that by the end of the week so that people have it.
Sure, we can certainly get you the survey results that we have now. What I would ultimately ask, a couple things. I don't think we need to legislate this where we have a motion. We can work as fast as we possibly can. I can talk to that team that's working on the investments, see how much further, how much time they might need in addition. And like we said, I thought that we would have a draft for you guys to review next, not this week, not the end of this week, because the teams are still working and they are planning on wrapping it up. I had said it might be a good idea to finish stuff by the 15th. Whatever you have in hand is what we'll work with. And, certainly when you guys review this and, when I can't talk about it, you'll have an opportunity to weigh in. I don't see why we're acting like you don't get an opportunity to weigh in. So, well, I'm clarifying. That's not the intention.
So it sounds like it's just a matter of a timeline. Like, okay, in order for us to give you input, reflect, and then make a decision, something has to happen before that with the input from the committee.
Which is why I highly
Maybe it's
recommend
Monday.
Dana and you guys, Ray and Dana, connect with you guys. Like I've said this 4 times now, I feel like that they're happy to sit down and like I said, Tina's happy to sit down.
Well,
I don't know what else I need to
are they
say
gonna
about that.
answer my question, which is essential to this project?
What? The
Is
vision
what
question?
it
No,
says,
the
ID
project.
your transformative project. That is a key question. If you could,
Yeah.
not help,